Welcome back to What You Missed, a video game news show where I discuss articles that occurred within days to a week ago that you may have missed that are important to the video game industry and possibly to you. I got a couple articles for you here. They're somewhat important. Shigeru Miyamoto and the legacy of Mario. This is discussing and detailing his thoughts about Mario. A lot of the time this happens when E3 rolls around, that a lot of these developers will be sat down and interviewed, and each year it's a treasure to hear what they think on this, because there was a time many years ago where the interview lasted a few paragraphs on a Nintendo Power magazine sheet, and that was it. And they weren't so famous also, so it wasn't that important to get their thoughts, or so a lot of individuals thought back in the day. The point of this article and the central key focus here is that there's actually a point where Miyamoto says that he does not want to make remasteries anymore, and the quote is that, quote, "I don't really feel like I want to remake any of them. It's more natural to always create new mechanics and new games." And what he was speaking on specifically was detailing remaking or remastering old Mario games. And I think it's important to see someone who created such an immortal legacy, such a huge legacy, speaking on this point, because if you realize he says that he doesn't want to do this, so I doubt it's going to happen. Some things have happened in the past where individuals said, oh, we don't really feel like remastering or remaking this game, and then they do it anyways way later on in life. But I don't think Miyamoto would ever do that. Miyamoto has enough pull at Nintendo to the point where he's overseeing development teams, and he's making sure that the game gets produced in the way that he knows will be good. He literally speaks about a line in this interview, and he says that not only but first and third parties have to conform to this line, and while first party development teams in-house Nintendo have a little bit more leeway and can push that line, he makes it very clear that to third party developers, they cannot go past this specific line. If they do, that's not going to fly with him, and he's not going to allow that to happen. Which is very strange, because if you really think about it, we have a game coming out called Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. But what he meant by the line and not remaking the old Mario games is that he wants to make new Mario games. And he said in this interview that it's more organic feeling, it's easier for him basically to make a new Mario game because detailing and developing new game mechanics is easier than trying to remake and incorporate old ones on the way that you kind of made them back in the day and make them work for the new console or new generation or whatever and hope that it works. I think he's somewhat right, but at the same time, I think remaking games can work. I know a lot of people absolutely loved when Mario All-Stars came out way back in the day. It was a collection of the NES games along with the Lost Levels or the original Super Mario Bros. 2 Japanese version, and a lot of people really liked the way they were upscaled in graphics. I think the same thing could be said. If Miyamoto literally remastered every Mario game when the next console came out, I don't think a lot of people would be greatly upset, because most of the time you have to wait 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 years for a new console to come out. So a lot of people don't want to wait that time to play the upscaled better version of Mario and would be willing to play the older version and then replay the newer version. I think that would be great, and I would love to see that. So the next story that I have is the Super NES Classic Mini pre-order guide is something that actually exists. Yes, there's a guide that exists to speak and talk about how to pre-order your SNES Mini. Now, there were pre-orders out for Amazon and Game.co UK, that would be the United Kingdom, and same with the Amazon, and they offered up a limited run of pre-orders for June 26th, but they also sold out the same day. So it seems like scalpers are going to be getting their hands on these things. But I would like to say that maybe you should rely more on your local stores, your local GameStops. I think buying them on eBay as well is somewhat something that you should consider, especially if it comes out and it can be hacked and have way more games on it. Even if it doesn't have them all, I think it's still important for us to get this console at least in our hands. And I think there's multiple ways that we can do that right now. As they said that they were going to be amping up production, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a lot. I remember I used to live in a city of 20,000 people, and guess what? They only got 6 NES Classics. So if they're ramping up production, does that mean that city will get 18 instead of 6? Yeah, you see what I'm saying. 18 isn't much better, but that's 3 times the production. So unless unless it's literally 1,000 times production of the original, I don't think a lot of people are going to be able to walk into a store like Walmart and just pick it up off of a shelf. To say the least, I'm a little bit disappointed that once again, scalpers seem to be getting quite a bit of whatever this is. Continuing on, we have ZELDA'S MIDNA was originally designed for an unreleased Nintendo game. So yeah, that's strange. Once again, another interview, and you can see all these interviews linked in the description down below, but there was the director, the Breath of the Wild's art director, speaking about this in one of the series of articles about the upcoming DLC, and he was talking about how after the Wind Waker had been completed, that there was a secret project that they were considering working on before The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, and you can see that a lot of the art kind of carried over in that fashion and in that manner. They said that the project featured Goblin Devilkin style character, and yeah, shocker, that was Midna. The appearance looks like a monster or a child. Can't tell if she's an enemy or an ally. Can't really tell what she's thinking, sometimes selfish, sometimes cute and naive, and that was carried over to the Twilight Princess project, that the other project was abandoned, leading to Midna making a similar kind of form in Twilight Princess. And they talked about how the trial and error thing and the designs and all of that good stuff that you would come to expect from an interview with this individual. If you'd like to see this interview in full, once again, I strongly suggest you click the article, but that is the long and the short of it. Midna was supposed to be a character in a different video game. There was supposed to be an entirely different Zelda. Strange to think that there could have been something a little bit more darker perhaps than the Zelda we got. That's a shocker if you really think about it, because that Zelda was something else, wasn't it? It was a really, really dark Zelda, not only in the fact that of its tones, but in its design and how it just played out in general. So the final article I have is how Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy offers up a return to my most important gaming memories. This was an individual that wrote about how his mother had died, but was the one that introduced him into the gaming media, and she introduced him into the Crash Bandicoot series, and he speaks from the heart, I can tell through his writings, where he was talking about how he used to play video games with his mother, and he's just discussing kind of like things with Christmas dinner and families, and a lot of the memories that I also have with video games are also detailed on the holidays more than they're not, because that's where I got new video games and was able to enjoy those games. And this individual go on to talk about how this was somewhat of a traumatic experience for him, because he had to deal with his mother's death, and the game being an extreme sore spot for him, as that was one of the video games that his mother, genuinely speaking, really did enjoy and wanted to bring up towards him and let him be able to play these video games as a child. Much similarly to me, as I grew up on Mario, Pokemon, and other RPGs, I would be quite upset if my mother had died, and it would be very difficult for me to reapproach those games. Those memories are good memories for me as a child, receiving my Super Nintendo from Santa Claus when I came down as a very, very young child. Good memories, man, but you have to think about how hurtful that would be if I was a little bit younger and impressionable still and my mother died, and you know, one of the biggest memories I had was me playing video games with her. Well, you know, those games would definitely consistently bring back the bad memories of the fact that my mother is dead. I can't pick up the phone, I can't call her. Well, technically I can't do that anyways, because yeah, families are families, aren't they? Ladies and gentlemen, you should really love your family as much as you can, despite how horrible they are to you, because unlike me, you may still be able to speak with your parents, and I might be limited to one parent, but at the very least, I still have one. Well, enjoy your time with your family. It seems to be what the article is trying to convey, that this game offers up a therapeutic experience of being able to revisit this type of video game, and maybe this individual is old enough to where they can cope with the reality of their mother's death. I did just go through psychology, so hopefully what I said seems to make sense to you. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys enjoyed this bulk of stories. The Shigeru Miyamoto interview is quite a long article. I mean, there's a lot that he goes into detail with, but you can kind of get the gist of what he's saying. Also, if you go and watch the Super Mario Maker interviews and videos of him and a fellow producer, and they do interviews a lot. So if you do find video interviews, watch them and compare them to the article, and you'll probably come up with the same exact answers. Miyamoto is a pretty stable developer. He's very good at what he does. He makes very fun Mario games, and I really appreciate him and his time. And when he's gone, I'm going to be very, very sad that I won't be able to enjoy those type of games. But as he says, it's very nice to get young people into the developmental process. So hopefully he's grooming a successor, and we won't miss out that much on Mario. But then again, when Gunpei Yokoi ended up dying, the creator of the Game Boy and Metroid, we definitely saw a failure of Metroid to appear for a long time. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, you guys have yourselves a great day. I've been your host, Protomario. I'm signing out. As always, good gaming. God bless. Please make sure to share this with all of your friends, and thanks for watching.